back. That's right, Billy, Gem City Welding, back out in the garage, working on the 1964 Impala. Thank you for tuning in to today's special episode. It's our special 2K subscriber giveaway. That's right, 2K subscribers. Never thought I'd make it that far, but here we are. It's also Christmas break, so Merry Christmas to you at home or wherever you are watching the show.
Happy Christmas. It's Christmas. Merry Crisis. Merry Chrysler.
So, big changes to the car. I'm going to show you guys that, show you what I've been working on. Later on in the episode, I'll do the subscriber giveaway. And then I also asked for questions a little while back on Instagram and Facebook and here on YouTube about, about the channel in general, about me, anything anybody wanted to know. And surprisingly, I got some really good questions. So we're going to talk about those and tell everybody where we're going next on the car. So all that and more on this episode. Stay tuned. All right, so here we are back out in the garage. It's a Christmas break, a balmy 34 degrees here in Ohio, which is perfect, but at least there's no snow. So what have I got done on the car? Well, that's a great question. It's not a whole lot, but the work I did do is very important. But first, before I get in here, I got some explaining to do. So my floor is now Bluetooth. Cut the floor out. That's what I started doing after the last video. And I'm sure some of you are wondering, well, why didn't he not record that and share that info with us? That's a great question. To be truthful with you, I'm not gonna lie about it. I just started cutting on the floor, and before I knew it, with my plasma, I had this floor out here in like maybe an hour. It was very fast. So this is what I've been doing. I've been working on the floor, prepping for replacing this cross member, and then I have a couple patches that I have to make on the rocker. That's one of them over there. I have to patch that, which, those of you that have worked on these 58 to 64s, and I'm sure other years, this is really common stuff, okay? It's not that big of a deal. Where you start getting into trouble is if you have to replace this whole entire inner rocker structure, which luckily for me, mine is very solid. From what I can see all across, it's just where that front cross member had rotted out. Now, I still have some work to do in here, but I figured this was a good stopping point to show everybody. I still have some remnants of the original front toe well, the floor pan, where it attaches to the firewall portion. So that would be that line all the way across there. So that still has to come out. Brace obviously is not welded in right now. It's just test fitted in, and I'll explain more about the test fitting in just a moment. The other thing I wanted to do was check out these factory floor braces to see what I had to replace, what was good, what wasn't good, and of course get a better look at the rear pan. Now, I mentioned in the last video that I think I can save this, and I'm still pretty confident that I can save that piece, that it's going to clean up just fine. But, I haven't made that call yet. I found out that this rear section is actually cheaper than I thought. It's only $100. So is it worth, taking a couple hours to cut all this out and replace that just because of looks? I don't know. Maybe not. We'll see. I haven't got that far yet, but be sure that if I do, I'll make a video about it. So, front cross member. Now, I cut all this stuff out because I knew that front cross member was wasted, and in the last video, it probably showed the floor looking better than most people, thought it would. But truth be told, it was pretty rough. The passenger side was more shot than anything. That side was pretty bad, as you can see what's left of it. So, of course, that had to go, and I thought to myself, yeah, I could patch this, I could patch that, but by the time I do, I could have just put a whole floor in this thing. And you guys know I already have a floor, so no spoiler alert there. This car's getting a whole floor. But one of the things that I needed to do was this front cross member, which was completely rotted off at the rocker. And Also, I had to add convertible body mounts, as you can see here. So there's something I wanted to show you guys. So if you haven't checked out the convertible body mount video, I'll post a picture somewhere on here to show you what it looks like, and you guys can go back and check out that video. But the whole idea is that unless your car is a factory convertible car, okay, your car does not have the cage nut for the convertible body mount. If it's a hardtop, a 4-door, SS, it doesn't matter. If it's a non-convertible, it's not going to have that cage nut in place. So no matter what, I was going to have to open up the floor. Even if this cross member was good, I was still going to have to open up the floor, cut out a patch, pull the patch off, put the cage nut on there, weld the cage nut, and then replace that patch. So guys who are doing convertible body mounts at home, keep that in mind. That's something you're going to want to do. The rear is actually no different. It's the same exact scenario. So, you know, if I keep this the way it is, I'm going to have to cut an opening about right here and weld that cage nut down inside the cross member for that lower convertible body mount on the rear. So that's pretty much the gist of convertible body mounts and how those mount. Now, as you can tell, they're not welded completely on yet. They're just tacked on because I will be pulling the body back off pretty soon, so I can do the majority of the sheet metal work off the frame. So just wanted to show everybody that. Sorry, zoom out a little bit better. So there's another thing I want to talk about with this. You can see the factory resistance welds. Okay, I'm not going to go too far in depth into this stuff because, to be quite honest with you, there's people out there who have videos about this that are way more detailed than me. Goosey Fabrication is one of those people. So check him out. He has excellent videos on how to do these cars. But the point I'm trying to make is, this is a super sport car, so it had a factory center console, and you can go at these resistance welds from the factory with what's called a spot weld cutter. Now, total transparency. Let me get out of this cart. Not a single one of these spot welds was drilled out by myself. I actually used a air-powered chisel, and I'll show you what one of those look like. If you don't already know, that's just a Harbor Freight one. I think it was like 15 bucks with a flat bit. Now, it's not as flat as it could be, but it still got the job done. So that right there is your best friend. Now, a spot weld cutter looks like this. You can get these at Harbor Freight. I think this was like $3 or $4. And if you want, you can spend 100 million years drilling all these out. Or, as an example, on this rear section, let's say you got an opening like this in your floor pan. All you have to do is get inside there with that little chisel bit, a couple hits of the trigger, and next thing you know, you're popping all these little welds out. And they're not going to put up much of a fight. That's just being 100% honest with you. That thing is worth its weight in gold. So keep that in mind. There's two ways to do this. But the big thing is, when I'm talking about, like, this car had a center console. Well, center consoles are bolted in with brackets, right? So the one thing I do want you guys to take away from this video, if you are watching this as a how-to, I removed the center of the floor pan in one chunk the best I could, with the remnant of what was left over from the cross member, which you can see is completely shot on both sides. So that's why that had to come out. These are the only 4 holes out of the whole entire project that I actually drilled out. And that's for one reason only. I wanted to remove this piece as one unit. Now, why would you want to remove that piece as one unit? Well, it's got these center brackets that bolt the console onto the floor. Everything is still in line, and it has some contour left from where I actually cut it out of the car. So, like, there's a factory hump, there's a hump. Of course, you got the hump up here. But I'll be able to take this and lay it right over my replacement floor, which is that guy right back there. And I'll know exactly where every single one of these brackets goes on the floor. and they'll be perfectly in line just as the factory did it in 64. So something to keep in mind, guys. If you're watching this as a how-to, if you can keep this section intact, if it's an SS car, it'll help you in the long run. Now, there's something else I want to mention. You always hear people in the automotive industry or restoration business, they say don't throw anything away until the car leaves. And for the most part, they're 100% right. An example of that would be certain parts like these. That happens to be a drain plug. That is a bucket seat mount. And you have like gas pedal studs, the ball studs. So those things are all, contoured. So I can technically lay this right over the replacement floor pan and know exactly where these things are going to go. So it's something to keep in mind when you guys are doing this at home. And again, check out Goozy Fabrication after you watch this video. And he's got great tutorials on how to do all this stuff. So that is where I'm at right now with the project. Where do I go from here? Great question. So I have the other rear convertible body mount that I need to put weld onto the frame. I'm going to have to drill those holes in that rear cross member so I can put those cage nuts on there and cut out the remnants of the floor, everything that's left over. And then the way I see it, by putting those convertible mounts on tells me exactly where they go on the frame, and then there's really no reason to have this body left on the frame. So at that point, I think I can pull this thing back off finally. And then also I want to be able to pull the doghouse off. I need to get that off there and kind of make the footprint of the car smaller when I got it in the garage and bolted to the body cart, which it don't look like much right now, but that is my body cart. I built that in a previous video, so check that out if you're trying to learn how to build a body cart. But that way I can move this thing around, pivot it, swivel it around as I need to. So that's where we are on Project 64. And if you ask me, I think it's a pretty good start. I felt a lot better and more relieved after I took the floor out and got a better look at these rockers. They look chewy on camera, but I promise you they're not. This is the extent of the damage, and that I can live with. That I can patch. That is no problem. And then, of course, these, I'll have to clean all this stuff up. Like, when you chisel this off, you're left with stuff like this. I can just barely catch my finger on it. That'll all get cleaned up. I did buy some zinc weld-through primer, so I'll be talking about that in a future episode. And try to make a decision on what I'm going to do about this. Right now, my gut's telling me to leave it, but we'll see what happens when I start working on it again. So that's where we are with Project 64. So let's get set up. Let's do the giveaway, which I'm very excited about, and answer those viewer questions. So hang tight for that. See you in a bit. Hold up, timeout. I was in the middle of editing the video and realized when I'm talking about this convertible body mount stuff, there may be some new people on the channel who haven't checked out that video. So I'm going to just show you real quickly what I'm talking about when it comes to putting convertible body mounts on your ride. So here we go. Okay, convertible body mount 101. This is the idea. This is the front cross member, okay? You see how I've got it mocked up here in the car, all the way across to the sides. We talked about the holes, etc., etc. These are 716 by 14 pitch, so 716-14 cage nuts, which are common on 64 to, I don't know, 80 something probably, body mount things. So basically what it is this gets welded to the cross member. Then of course you got your body bushing underneath there that runs the bolt up through the middle, and that's what ties everything all together. Now, for those of you not familiar with a cage nut, it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a caged nut. That nut has movement with that bolt. So even if it's not perfectly lined up onto the frame, you'll still at least be able to start the bolt to get it to a point to where you can start bolting it down. So guys, convertible body mount 101, there you go. All right, so here we go, back to the channel. So thank you so much for tuning in and sticking through to the very end here, where we're going to do the giveaway and we're going to take some viewer questions that I had some folks write in for the 2,000 subscriber giveaway video. But first, I got a very big shout out to Kevin, Sarah, Elijah, and Kai for the awesome, rad Gym City Welding shirt. They were watching the channel and they said, hey man, you need something to wear on your channel and something you can wear out when you're at the show. So thank you for the shirt. I appreciate it so much, and thank you for the support. So the contest, I probably put this contest up maybe a month ago, or maybe a little bit over a month. And what we're going to give away today is a 1957 Chevy Bel Air model kit and 1/25th scale Pegasus Chrome Daytons. The rules for the contest were really simple. All you had to do was purchase a Gym City Welding sticker for $1, and you can have as many entries as you want, depending on how many you wanted to purchase. I was fortunate enough that I had two gentlemen take me up on the offer. That's two. So in the spirit of the giveaway and the contest, not only is the first place going to get the model and the wheels, but I'm also going to throw in an extra set for the second place winner. That way, each one of you guys are going to get something other than your stickers. And this is just my way of showing appreciation for you entering the contest and supporting me and the channel. So in the little time lapse, you guys saw me writing the names on the back of the stickers, which I've since placed into this, and I'll draw the winner out of that in just one moment. The two gentlemen that entered, Brent Tybalt and Justin Arlano. So thank you guys so much for entering the contest, and I hope to do some more of these in the future as we progress in subscribers. So let's go ahead and draw that winning name now. So I'm going to mix these up, and I'm not going to look in this thing. All right, so not looking, just going to draw one of them. Justin, you are the winner of the model kit and the Chrome Daytons. And Brent, you will also win a set of Chrome Daytons for entering the contest. So congratulations to Justin, congratulations to Brent, and thank you guys again for supporting me here at Gym City Welding. So that's pretty fun and exciting. I'm happy about that, and I look forward to seeing this get built, Justin. So keep me updated on the progress of the kit. So yeah, 2,000 subscribers. Wow, what an amazing journey this has been. Put a questionnaire out there. Well, not really a questionnaire, but just putting out feelers on social media, asking for people to send me some questions about things about, it could be about me, it could be about the channel, it could be about YouTube, and I got a really big response. So what I'm going to do is go over some of those and talk about some of the answers to some of these questions. So here we go. All right, so first question is going to be a technical question. This comes straight from the YouTube channel. Cholo, at Cholo970. He says, I know this is off subject, but what size hole do you cut for front cylinders on a G-body? That's a great question. So to keep the answer from not running too long, I'm just going to explain it to you like this, as simple as I possibly can. In my opinion, that decision will be made depending on what size cylinders you choose. I've talked about this before on the channel and several of the videos, but the outside diameter casing will determine the size of the hole that you need to place in your frame, whether it's a G-body, a Lincoln, a Caddy, an Impala, S10, it doesn't really matter. Just this example here is this is a 2-inch fat stick from Cool Cars. So the actual outside casing diameter comes in at 2 inch. So, you know, could you get a 2-inch hole saw and cut the hole and expect this to fit perfectly? It'll be really close. You might have to open up the hole just slightly, maybe with like a deburring bit, but you know, could you go with like a 2 1/8 hole saw? Sure. That would leave you, you know, a little bit of room on each side, a 64th on each side. So that would be the best way to answer the question. It just depends on what the diameter of the cylinder is that you're choosing for your project. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Second question. Let's see. Elad, excuse me, I'm terrible with these names. Eliad Dion Leon 160. I'm sorry I butchered that, brother. Hi, thanks for the video. I have a 60 Chevy Impala. Will your brake kit clear original 14-inch steel wheels? Another technical question. So the brake kit that I chose on the channel, you can go back, you can watch that that video. It does not clear factory drum brake wheels. So you would need to find a kit that offers you both disc brake and drum brake wheel options. They're out there, but the particular kit that I purchased will not work in that application. So sorry about that. But don't give up. Keep looking. The kit is out there for you. You just got to find it. Next question. Let's see. Keith Brooks 153. Hello, I have a couple questions about it. I have a 64 Impala I'm going to restore, but want to know what gauge of metal you use on the frame when you're cutting out metal to replace it, and what amp plasma cutter to use to cut the metal. Great question. So the way I would tackle this, Keith, is to say, what size metal do you want to use on your frame? That depends on what your goals are with the car and the vehicle that you're working on. I've said before on the channel, it's kind of taboo to use the 1/8 inch because you just don't see that much, and at least in my neck of the woods you don't. But in the show car side of things, 1/8 inch is common because it gives you that smooth molded appearance on your frame. If you're going for more of a lay and play setup, then 3/16 is pretty common, pretty standard. Even when you're getting into like the hopping vehicles, 3/16 is still very common, but guys will go up to 1/4 inch. Anything over that, it's a toss up, man. I don't really know anybody that's used over 1/4. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but in my personal experience, I don't know anyone. So 3/16 is what I used on my frame. That's the chosen size, you know, for years and years and years. And guys have proven over time that it works and can be just as strong as anything else. So you can go 1/8 inch if you're doing a show car, 3/16 for lay and play stuff, and 3/16 up to 1/4 for hopping vehicles. So as far as amps go on the plasma cutter, so my plasma cutter is running off a 120 volt outlet with a 20 amp breaker. So I don't actually have 220 in my garage, at least not yet. Plans are to add that, but I cut all those 3/16 plates on 20 amp breaker on 120 volts. So it is possible. You got to go a little slower than, you know, if you were running a 240 volt setup, but you can do it. If you want to cut the 1/8 inch, it'll breeze through it right now, no problem. So keep that in mind when you're purchasing your plasma cutter. And also, just a word of advice, if you're going to be running a welder or a plasma cutter in your garage, you know, full time, basically, like what you're doing, like what I'm doing, try to make a dedicated circuit for just that piece of equipment if you can. I actually ran a whole brand new line to my garage just so I had a dedicated circuit for the welder. That way, you're not interfering with other things in your house or apartment or condo or wherever it is that you live, or wherever you're working at. So if you can do that, run you a dedicated circuit. Let's see, next question. From @WolfPlayer1912. Love the 12-second hoopty. Need more videos on it. So the video he's talking about was my Malibu video. That was just the introduction to the channel. I do have a second car, which is my 1980 Malibu G-Body. I appreciate the feedback and the comment about that. The video really didn't go over too well initially when I put it out. People just didn't really respond to it as much as, say, the Impala, which, you know, I understand. That's when I started Gem City Welding, I wasn't necessarily looking to lead with the Lowrider stuff. It's just that's what I was working on when I started the channel. So the timing there was, you know, more Lowrider stuff. But I figured if I introduced the Malibu, it would garner some kind of interest, and it really didn't take off very much. So I'm not saying we're not going to see that on the channel again, but you never know. Maybe I need to paint that car. So one of these days, maybe we'll do a how-to video on painting that car. But for now, it'll make an appearance every now and then. But being that it's wintertime here in Ohio, I'm putting that thing away because it's not very good under 50 degrees temperature. It's a pain in the ass to start. But anyways, so you may see that in an upcoming future episode. So thank you, Wolf Player 1912. Next question. Okay, so this one comes from Instagram. This is from Kilos_media. Kilos Media is wow. What can you say about Kilo, man? He's absolutely amazing photographer, videographer. The guy has an eye for his art and his craft, and I'm very fortunate that I can get to consider him a friend. We've crossed paths a few times, and we talk sometimes, through social media stuff, and he's a supporter of me, and I'm a big supporter of him. So, got a question from Kilos. He said, here's my question. Why lowriders? What got you into lowriders, and how old were you, and who did you look up to? He says, it's always cool to see who inspired people. So yeah, he's absolutely right. It is. The first part of that question is, why lowriders? So, that's not really something I can answer super quick. I'll do my best at doing that, but basically, I like to tell people that my growing up in the 90s was the perfect storm for automobiles, for culture, for everything. I was becoming of age for, getting my driver's license right around the time that mini trucks were really popular. Lowriding was absolutely huge, and the attraction there for me just came from, to be 100% honest, it was the car dancing scene. I was instantly drawn to the competition of lowrider hopping vehicles, whether it was street, super street, luxury hop, radical hop. As the classes evolved over time, I just fell right lock and step with those and just carried on with them, and studied them as much as I possibly could, because I was extremely fortunate at the time to be able to have a small part in that whole era of lowriding, which kind of actually goes into the second part of the question: what got you into lowriders? I was very fortunate to grow up in an area here in Dayton, Ohio, where I had in my eyes, in my opinion, a lowriding pioneer, Dean Carnes. Some of you may know him as Disco Dean or Stinky Pinky on the Street Outlaws TV show. Growing up here in Dayton, we had a car show called Carl Casper Autorama.
It's supercars and sensational stars at the Custom Auto Show, featuring the world's most incredible automotive creation, the all-new Batmobile, plus the 60s TV Batmobile. Meet in person super hunk Paul Williams and Emilio from Days of Our Lives. See the Calendar Girls and Pageant, Bengal Cheerleaders, a kids' cartoon carnival of stars featuring Garfield, RoboCop, Jetsons, Yogi Bear, and Dino. See Miss USA and a Ford's Bodybuilding Expo, plus all of the nation's top cars in the greatest custom auto show ever, next weekend at the Fairgrounds.
It was a huge event. Featured everything from muscle cars, hot rods, customs, and lowriders. And that's kind of where I first met Dean and got to see Dean in person. And he had an El Camino at the time, 4-pump El Camino. And I was just a little kid. And, as time would progress, I would follow him through the lowrider circuit. He ended up, being in the Lowrider magazine, who knows how many times. And ultimately, he became the 97 world champion car dancer. And I got to know him on a more personal level shortly after that, when he sold his Bronco, which I'll show a picture of the Bronco, and a Ford Ranger that he had at the time that was kind of one of his last builds in the lowrider movement. But I was very fortunate with a very close friend of mine, Ryan Worrell. We were able to get those vehicles from Dean, and both Ryan and I had our chance to hop those vehicles in competition. And so kind of coming full circle, that's a lot to say in just a few minutes, but that's the best way I can explain it. Dean was a very big part of my youth growing up, and helped me in the scene and helped me understand. And having him so close to home was really cool. And he was a a big inspiration for me. So Kilos, I hope that answers those questions. Why lowriders and what got me into the lowriding? And how old were you, and who did you look up to? That again, that kind of answers that. Some of the look up to stuff though was, man, there's a lot. Dean obviously was a big one. Pat Burke was a big one. Brian Gillespie was a big one. Todd Wilt. Oh boy, let's see. Art Tucson. Gary May. The list just goes on and on. So many of those guys had a profound impact on me with lowriding, and in a lot of ways has actually brought me full circle. I mean, almost 30 years later. Well, yeah, about 30 years later, looking back on this stuff and getting me back into it. And some of these guys are still pretty active in the scene. Some of them aren't, but it's pretty cool. You know, I know, and say, as an example, like I knew Dean when I was like 13 years old. I think it's the first time I ever met him. And now I'm in my 40s, and it's just a whole different perspective, but he's just as cool as ever. So all those guys are just as cool as ever. And it's an honor and a pleasure to call them friends. So yeah, that would be my answer for those questions, Kilo. So thank you. Appreciate those questions. Let's see. Next question. How about talking about your earlier builds? This is from natas.619 on Instagram. Natas.619. I hope I got that right. Talk about your earlier builds, any style, and how it's influenced your choices for the 64. So this is probably going to be the most in-depth question I'll answer. My earlier builds. So I had an 86 Cutlass that I had put a single pump on. This would have been around 98, maybe. I don't recall. I cut the front coils on the car, put the pump on the back, and to be 100% truthful and honest with you, it was ghetto as could be. I bought the setup used. I don't even remember where I bought it, to be honest with you. It might have been out of the Trading Post, which, you know, younger guys back then, Trading Post was a thing. We didn't have the internet like Craigslist and Facebook Marketplace. So I think I bought it out of Trading Post, but basically it was just a single pump. I think it was a Reds pump, if I remember, like a Stylin Pro Series pump. Single battery and 8-inch strokes in the rear on a factory cut down coils. And it was ghetto. I mean, the rack wasn't welded to the frame. It was, I think for a long time, it wasn't even tacked to the trunk floor. It just kind of sat in there. And, you know, being a young kid, I really didn't know. You know what I mean? I mean, I kind of did, but I didn't. I was just trying to make it work. And that's what you do when you're young and when you're getting started in this kind of stuff. Let's see. After the Cutlass, I had Chevy Caprice. And then, of course, I had the Dancers. I had the Bronco, had the Ranger. And that was a whole nother experience, because being young, you know, you're trying to make your way in life. And, you know, I can't speak for everybody else, but I could, just for me, is like, you know, I wasn't a super rich young guy. So, like, everything I did was, you know, it was beg, bartering, and just trying to make it work. And getting those vehicles from Dean, it was a very good experience, and a very positive experience. And it taught me a lot about fabrication, welding, the competition of the sport, traveling. My friend Ryan and I, we did a lot of traveling with those vehicles. Me specifically, I was able to hop the Ranger at Southern Showdown, which was sponsored by Cool Cars back in the day. And that was a very interesting experience, because that's the first time that I got to meet KJ from Cali Swingin'. So that kind of leads me into the second part of your question, and how it's influenced my choices for the 64. So when I first started out with the lowriding stuff, it was just like most everybody else. It was the magazine. The magazine got my attention, brought me to the scene, and it really it got me hooked almost immediately. Fast forward, you know, a couple years, I'm reading the magazines and trying to understand the culture, trying to understand, because lowriding here in Dayton wasn't it hadn't quite exploded just yet. It was on the cusp of doing that. So there was a lot of things to come, but at the time, I was very fortunate enough to go to a local car show called the Cruise Fest Nationals, which was, words can't describe how big that event was for this area. And that particular show is the very first time that I discovered the VHS tapes of Cali Swingin'.
I got lip shop cylinders in the back. I got airplane cylinders in the
This was before pumps and dumps. This was very early, like I'm talking like volume 4, I think, is the very first Cali Swingin' I ever had. And that introduced me to a whole nother side of lowriding that I didn't really know much about. And to put that into perspective, like if you're reading the magazine, it's the 90s or 2000s, it's largely a Hispanic magazine, which is great. I love it. I love the culture. I love seeing all that stuff. The paint jobs, the interiors, I mean, the murals, the graphics, just everything I fell in love with. But another side of that was Cali Swingin'. Cali Swingin' was like the video magazine. If you've never seen a Cali Swingin' episode, you can look them up on YouTube. KJ's son, Janky J, he puts some content out there, and he's got plenty of stuff for you to check out. But long story short, Cali Swingin' was mostly the African-American side of Los Angeles, featuring Crenshaw, and it was showing all these, all the different sides of lowriding that I really didn't get to see from the magazine. There was occasionally, sometimes Lowrider magazine would do features on some African Americans. One of those that I could think of right off the top of my head is VMAX and Gangster. You know, everybody knows Gangster, Santana 64, TV show Sunday Driver. VMAX was, he has since passed away, unfortunately, so rest in peace, VMAX, but he was an amazing, amazing builder, and he had a 63 that was featured in Lowrider magazine. Orange 63 rag, I know some of you remember what I'm talking about. It had an orange convertible top, and that thing would hit, you know, I don't know if it was 100 inches, but it was up there. It was way up there. And so it was guys like that that were shaping my opinion about lowriding and changing how my perspective was about how I looked at lowriding, because some of those examples, I tried to save some of them on here, would be like Charles Clayton. So Charles Clayton was from Individuals. He had many, many different cars. He's talked about all the time on the King of Chevys. I first heard about Charles Clayton through Cali Swingin'. Dulo was another one. Obviously Gangster and VMAX. You had Damu Riders. You had Mac 10 was on there. So it was a whole different perspective of lowriding as a whole. And in a way, that has really influenced me on how I'm building my personal car. Again, I love the crazy wild graphics. I love the murals that are, you know, in like the Lowrider magazine, you would see like a lot of Virgin Marys, you would see a lot of Aztec warriors, gods, that sort of thing. And I love all that stuff. It's really great. But the one thing I noticed about the African-American side of lowriding was, like if you look at Charles Clayton or Tweet from the King of Chevys podcast, some of those early builds, yeah, they had patterned roofs and stuff like that, but largely the vehicles were almost to the point of a full restoration, aside from, you know, obviously hydraulics and Dayton's or Zeniths. And I really gravitated towards that side of lowriding. you know, restoring these classic Chevys, making them look almost showroom stock, except for an altered suspension of wheels. And it's not to say that I don't want a car that's got a crazy paint job or, you know, tuck and roll crushed velvet interior, because truth be told, I love that stuff. I always have. But when it comes to this 64 and this particular build, I'm going more of a stock look. And seeing those early Cali swinging videos, seeing those guys on the Shaw, hopping those early Chevys, has really, you know, it's seared into my brain, and it's something I can't forget. So that's kind of how I'm basing this particular build. So that's a mouthful, but and I hope that doesn't come across in the wrong way. It's just me trying to explain that the truth of the matter is that back then, Lowrider magazine only really showed one side of the culture. And I know I'm going to have people argue with me about that, and that's fine. But I mean, out of the hundreds of Lowrider magazines I have here at home, there's just a handful of articles and builds and profiles on certain people that I can pull from those and say, yeah, these are examples. You know, a lot of the hopping competition side showed a little bit more. Like there was some, in the early Lowrider videos that you could do mail order, there was, you know, some features on Gary May and Ted Wells. Ted Wells is another one. Ted Wells is an OG, and he's, you know, the guy's lived to tell the tale, and he does a lot of aircraft stuff. He does a lot of gates, lift gate pumps, or at least he did. He's getting a little older now, but guys like that were a big inspiration to me. So that's the direction I'm taking my build in. So thank you for that question. I appreciate you very much. Let's see. So a couple other things I wanted to touch on. Oh, there was one more question. So what got you into starting the YouTube channel, and how has it changed your perspective of YouTube? So that is a great question. That is from Lance1718. So shout out to you, Lance. Thank you. YouTube, how did I get into it? The running joke for me when I talk to people about this is I always tell them I started the channel to document my car. That way when I kick the bucket and my kids sell the car, they know what to tell the people who buy the car, which is just a joke. It's the truth of the matter is I started the channel to document the build for my kids. I want them to look back when they're my age, you know, hopefully God willing, I'm still on this earth and I still have the car, and they can say, wow, you know, Dad did X, Y, and Z. He really touched every nut and bolt on this car, and it's truly his car. And that has kind of led into a love-hate relationship with YouTube. I'm sure other YouTubers out there will understand what I'm about to say, but for those of you who don't do content creating or have a channel, may not understand. YouTube is a great way to get your message out there. It's a great way to show people, hey, this is what I'm doing. If you have a like-minded interest, come follow me and, you know, watch me on this journey. At least from my perspective in the car part of YouTube, that's what it's about. But my love-hate relationship stems from YouTube itself and how it's designed. It's not the most user-friendly. It's not the most friendly to startups. A great example of that is, you know, I just passed the 2,000 subscribers. I think I'm sitting at like 2,060 maybe. I can't remember, somewhere in the 60s. And one of my last couple videos, I think it might have been the body cart video. I tried to include some music in the video during the time lapses, because nobody wants to sit there and just watch a time lapse with nothing in the background. You know, music makes it entertaining. And I had to upload that video 3 times because I kept getting flagged for a 15-second clip that had some copyrighted music, which coincidentally, I got the copyrighted music from YouTube's free copyright, free material, so you could use it whenever you want, but they don't update their systems as often as they should. So I ended up using a song that was, the owner had claimed copyright to. So I had to redo that, re-upload that video 3 times. And those of you that watch like Skid Society, another YouTube content creator, he talks about this too. He'll make a video and he'll have to re-upload it a couple times because of a music content warning or something like that, or it's just one of those things that makes it extremely hard to get content out. Because let's be honest, like I'm making this video right now. This video may be, let's say 45 minutes long or whatever it ends up being. I'm going to have hours in this video, hours filming it, hours editing it, putting it all together, doing all this stuff. And to upload that, which takes sometimes up to 30 minutes to upload a video, just to have it flagged and I have to go back and redo all that again. It is just so annoying. It's a terrible setup. And the other side of that is YouTube, once you hit a certain metric, like 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 viewing hours, you can start being monetized and being paid for your content, which is great. I always tell people, if you're getting into YouTube to become rich and famous, you can forget it, because it's not going to happen. You may make pennies on the dollar for a video that you spend hours making. Yes, I receive a little bit of monetization, but it's not anything to write home about. And that's one of the aspects of YouTube that really bothers me, because it's commercial driven, sponsorship driven, advertising driven, and they get most of the reward. So I wish the creators, the content creators themselves, had a little bit more skin in the game when it comes to getting paid. But unfortunately, that's one of the things. I think that's why a lot of people do like Twitch and stuff like that. I've never done a Twitch, so I can't speak on that too much, but that's another outlet to do this kind of thing. So, I have a love-hate relationship with that aspect of YouTube. But on the flip side, YouTube has done some pretty miraculous things for me. One, it keeps me motivated. It keeps me going on the car. I keep saying to myself, man, I got to get that next video out there, because I'll get questions from, viewers like you guys, and they want to know, how do you do this? How do you do that? And I'm like, crap, I got to get that video out there to show them how to do this. And another aspect of that is just meeting viewers in public, being out at a car show or an event. I've said this time and time again, but if you're new to the channel, that has happened quite a bit, and I'm very proud of that. I take great pride in that, because people come up and I get to put a name to a face and shake some hands, and sometimes I'll have these stickers with me and I'll hand out stickers, and it's pretty cool to get to interact with people on a more personal level. I've also built some relationships through YouTube with other YouTubers, so that's pretty cool too, because I'm talking to guys that have got way, way, way more subscribers than I do, and followers, and that's not really what I'm doing this for. I mean, it helps, but that's, it's cool to be able to interact with them, and they can interact with me. So that's a big aspect of that YouTube love-hate relationship, and I hope that answers your question. So the last question is from Instagram. Last two, real quick. Social commented, is it better to install the floor with the body off the frame? Great question. So in this exact video, you just saw me put in a support with convertible body mounts. That would be, in my situation, that would be really tough to do off the frame, because two things need to happen. One is my support was rotted out, so I really didn't know exactly where it lined up on the rocker panels. I could kind of see where it sat, but I wasn't really sure. Two, having the convertible body mounts on the frame, I needed to make sure I had that thing perfectly square and centered on the frame. So it worked out for me having it on the frame in this instance. Now, when I go to install the actual floor, I'm going to try to do that with the body off, because I will already have that cross member right where it needs to be, so that shouldn't be an issue. But having the body off the frame will allow me to get underneath and descale and take off all the original undercoating of what's left on the floor and the cross braces. So to answer your question, it depends on the circumstances and what you have to do to your floor. Last question. Let's see. Master_Sarah_12 from Instagram says, when there is not a lift, how do you take down a body? So I'll show you a little clip of that right now. So that's how I did it. Just 2 floor jacks, a couple buddies, and some NURBS of steel. That's how I did it. Having a lift would be amazing, but it's not absolutely necessary. I know guys that have built cars like this in carports or apartments. It can be done. It's not ideal, but it can be done. So those of you at home that are looking to do this and you say to yourself, man, I can't do X, Y, and Z because I don't have a lift or I don't have this special tool or whatever. If there's a will, there's a way. So, and actually that's part of the channel too, is investing in yourself. If you need a special tool, buy that tool, save up and buy that tool and invest in yourself. And that way that tool will pay for itself over time and you'll be way ahead of the game. So, Master Sarah 12, I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much for that. Last couple things before I cut you guys loose. In this video, I talked about weld-through primer. This is just one product. I didn't have it at the time. It literally just got delivered today. This is from Amazon. SEM product 40773 zinc weld. Why is this important? When you have 2 mating surfaces that are bare metal on both sides, what's going to happen over time is if you don't have any protection between those 2 layers, the metal will sweat. It can, have water seep between it. It can do all sorts of things, and next thing you know, it rusts out. Zinc weld or weld-through primer, particularly, provides coverage over the bare metal, so you can weld the 2 pieces together, and it's a weld-through primer. Just as it says, you can literally weld right through that stuff. Now, it doesn't smell the greatest, so keep your head out of the weld fumes when you're welding with this stuff, but it has zinc in it, and that's the big thing. Zinc prevents the rust. So I would have showed that earlier, but I literally just got it in the mail. Last but not least, I talked about Cruise Fest Nationals, and unfortunately, it's with a heavy heart that I have to say that the founder and president of Cruise Fest Nationals, Daryl Uzzle, has passed away. He passed away a couple days before Christmas. What can I say about Daryl? He is responsible for so many of us in this Dayton area being into low riding and still talking about it 25 or 30 years later. He brought, from my memory serves me correct, he brought Cool Cars here. He brought Hijacker here to Dayton. He brought Dayton Wire Wheel to the shows. He had people all across the country come to this event. It was an absolutely amazing event. And Daryl was one of those guys that he loved automobiles. It didn't matter what it was. If it was a custom, a hot rod, a lowrider, a mini truck, he was all about it. And he loved sharing that stuff with everybody else that attended his shows. It's been often said that Daryl Uzzle never knew a stranger. He was a very nice guy. And one particular example that I can think of is I was at an event that he happened to be at with a concession trailer advertising for the next upcoming Cruise Fest. And it was like a heat wave. It was at least June or July, 100 degrees outside. We were dying of thirst. I brought so many bottles of water from him because we were out in the middle of nowhere for this car show. And at one point, he said, "This is ridiculous. It's way too hot. I'm not selling these waters. If you need a water, come get a water." So he would do stuff like that out of the kindness of his heart. And I'm always thankful to him for that kind of stuff. And he would always stop and talk to you at the show. Again, like I said, he brought the low riding here to Dayton. His hydraulic contest really stuck with me. And that introduced me to guys like Dean, guys like Brian Gillespie from Cool Cars. The list goes on and on. So I'm going to dedicate this episode to Daryl Uzzle in his memory and to the Uzzle family. I don't know if any of you will ever see this, but if you do, thank you very much for all the great memories. And Daryl, you rest in peace, buddy. We'll see you someday again. So that's probably going to conclude this episode. It's going to be a little bit of a long one, but thank you so much. One last thing, I almost forgot. Please subscribe to the channel. A staggering 97% of returning viewers to the channel are not subscribed. So if you enjoy the content, if you enjoy seeing what I'm doing on the Impala, please hit that subscribe button. I don't get a whole lot of benefit from it other than the YouTube algorithm understanding that, okay, people like this channel and it spreads my message to more people who are trying to do this kind of work at home. So help me get those people here to the channel and show them how to do this stuff and how to get their vehicle and projects on the road. So please hit that like, subscribe, and while you're at it, hit that bell notification. That way when I post content or make a post, you'll know about it and stay up to date on what's going on with me and the Impala. So thank you to all of you for tuning in. Thank you to Justin, tonight's winner, and I'll get this stuff out in the mail, guys, very, very soon. And like always, thank you for watching and supporting the channel. Till next time, take care, God bless, and we'll see you on a future episode.